Live from the KIJU studios in beautiful Ogasawara, this is the Monster Island Film Vault, episode 64, Kaiju Weekly versus 20 Million Miles to Earth. Hello, Kaiju lovers, and welcome to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast seeking entertainment and enlightenment through tokusatsu. I am your host, Monster Island's film curator, Nate Marchand. Sure, Jimmy, sure. Start the show off with the corrections. Yes, Kaiju lovers, I owe you, I guess, a small apology. There was a small oversight on my part. Normally, I do these tentpole episodes in chronological order. Well, unbeknownst to me, today's movie actually predates the Blob by a year. This was 1957. The Blob was 1958. Oops.
Shame.
Shut up, Jimmy. Anyway, before we get to today's movie, I need to introduce my guests, the boys from Kaiju Weekly, my two co-hosts in common, Travis Alexander and Michael Hamilton.
Who are you calling boys? We're men, damn it.
I'm a man.
Says the guy wearing a helmet.
Well, no, it's a hazmat suit. Like,
oh. Oh, I can see. Oh, okay. Hazmat suit. Why are you wearing a hazmat suit?
Well, ask your producer, because your
what does
producer
wearing a helmet have to do with being a boy and not a man? Men can't wear helmets?
I thought he was wearing a costume. I couldn't tell.
No,
I thought he was cosplaying or something.
No, I'm cosplaying as someone.
Yes.
I'm cosplaying as someone who was told to wear a hazmat suit for some ungodly reason. Jimmy, why am I wearing this stupid thing? Oh, so this is your little way of getting back at me for pretending that you weren't a real person. Well, can I at least take the damn thing off? It's hot.
Nope, I'm exerting host privilege. You can take the dang thing off.
Thank you.
God. Jimmy is a real boy.
I certainly hope so, because otherwise this is going to get really weird really fast.
And if he lies, something grows, but it is not his nose.
Ooh! So many jokes. So many.
It's his finger, jokes. Nathan. What was your mind on?
Totally a finger. Yep.
Totally. I bet there's more juice in Jimmy's little finger than there is in Nate's whole body.
We're not going there. I am exerting host privilege again. Silence! I kill you!
You'd have to try harder than you normally do.
I don't know what I agreed to, but anyway.
How did you guys get here today anyway? Apparently it involved a hazmat suit, so why did you have to wear a hazmat suit?
We took the Rad Bug.
First,
we took the Rad Bug because Jimmy let me have it because he was so kind. But I got an email prior to coming to the island that said I must wear a hazmat suit when I came onto the island. No idea why, but
okay. So Michael, you got a message. We rode together, and you got a message saying that you have to wear a hazmat suit, but you didn't tell me about it.
I mean, I figured your immune system was pretty good. So, but yeah, I got an email about wearing.
We are COVID free on the island, I assure you.
But I figured, you know what? I played along. I figured it was Jimmy being an a-hole and just wanting to get back at me anyway for not acknowledging his real personhood. So, Jimmy, I acknowledge here on the podcast that you are indeed a real fake person. Such language. Such language.
Jeez, man. Is Jet here today? Because I may have to dump button you. Jeez. Oh, you've already sent him the text message to be over here. Got it.
Well,
of course it's because of Michael. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is he gonna bust through the wall like the Kool-Aid man and go, "Oh yeah"?
I almost want him to. Except he wouldn't smash through it. He would, he'd be like, punch, punch, punch.
Of course.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about Godzilla versus Megalon. Although I can tell you gentlemen must have slept the entire way here. Who did you take shifts driving the Rad Bug? Do you have to get certified to fly that thing?
Autopilot, sir.
Oh, of course there's an autopilot. Who put it in there, Billy or Jimmy?
I'm assuming Billy because Billy is smarter than Jimmy. Oh, I'm just joshing you now, Jimbo. Yeah. Come on.
But Jimmy and Billy, I just realized that was an unintentional Double Dragon reference.
It is. Ooh. Good for you. Good for you for being smart there, Marchand.
Accidentally smart.
The best way, or the only way you know how.
My ego. So much bruising. Oh,
I will say that this smoothie that I had before coming over to the radio station is delicious.
Oh, did you get it from Smoothie King Ghidorah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the Smoothie King franchise here.
Yeah, it's the red berry smoothie. So you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you might want to not have a second helping of that.
Too late. I'm almost done with this really tall glass.
Well, then you're going to become a very sleepy drug addict. That stuff comes from Faroe Island. Have fun.
Oh, by the way, I brought my cat to the island too. I hope that was okay.
Oh, Daisy. Hello, Daisy.
She had to be here to see the kaiju and scratch their legs.
Which one is her favorite?
She likes King Caesar, and it's a point of contention between the two of us, but we've worked through it.
I'm glad to hear that you've done that. Shut up, Michael! Anyway.
Jimmy, hang on. Jimmy, can I get another one, please? Thanks, buddy.
As I was saying, we've been bantering all this time, and I haven't even mentioned what the movie is yet. Because today we are continuing our series called America, 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 Ameri-kaiju. And boy, howdy, did I have to smack that silence button to play that with these two. They're getting rowdy. But anyway, yes, Ameri-kaiju is continuing, and we're talking about 20 million miles to Earth, because I had to get at least one Harryhausen into this series, and I knew you two are both huge Harryhausen fans, so I had to get you on for this. In fact, this had to be so big, it demanded both of you.
Yes, love Ray Harryhausen. Love his filmography.
We love Ray Harryhausen. We do. We love Ray Harryhausen. Ray Harryhausen is a wonderful, wonderful human being and has taken up many hours of my childhood. I'd say between Ray Harryhausen and Playboy, my childhood was pretty filled up.
Well, I can't speak to Playboy, but you've heard me mention that
Michael. You started early.
Anyway, childhood fantasies aside, you guys know that you have two friends who share a birthday with Mr. Harryhausen, right?
Yes, right? We do.
We have one friend and one acquaintance.
Jack and Alex. Jack and Alex have a birthday with Ray Harryhausen.
Oh, well, I thought you were talking about the one who just recently graduated kindergarten. Oh, congratulations, Elijah. I'm glad that you finally made it to first grade.
Oh, don't pick on that poor baby. Don't pick on that poor baby.
Okay, fine. He just started middle school.
Okay, that's fair.
That's yeah.
He's getting he's growing his man peach fuzz now.
Ah, yeah. He's growing up. They grow up so fast.
On Kaiju Weekly, we've been periodically going through the Harryhausen filmography. We've been doing it periodically, and we've been trying to go through it chronologically, starting with his earliest work and moving forward. And it has been such an adventure. I mean, most of these movies I had already seen at a young age and for most of my life. So I knew most of these movies, but seeing it in chronological order, they really, really take on just a whole nother dimension. So yeah, we are definitely fans of Ray Harryhausen.
Really, Jimmy? Are you serious? Of course he would start a competing show. Apparently, our new majority shareholder, the new boss here, is doing his own live stream while we're having a broadcast, thereby splitting our potential live audience here on the island.
Oh, is it more interesting? Is it more interesting than this show?
Well, let's see.
Yeah,
what's going on, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Well, what's he even doing, Jimmy? It can't be that interesting. You're kidding me. He sent one of his cyber flies out to go find the Ymir in the island's jungle. Well, I guess that makes sense. The Ymir is pretty reclusive. He doesn't like being bothered. Well, let's take a quick peek at that live stream.
Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and you lovely mutants. Cameron Winter here with a special live stream. Sorry, not sorry, Marchland, for cutting into your piece of the audience pie, but as my associate Mr. Gold has told me, the morning is the best time for hunting. So be very, very quiet. I'm hunting Ymir. Oh, me. With the 65th anniversary of 20 million miles to Earth, and the 102nd birthday of Ray Harryhausen next month, showcasing the Ymir isn't just a good idea, it's a requirement. But he's an elusive and reclusive creature. Seeing him is a badge of honor and makes anyone who sees him feel lucky enough to play the lottery. Convert the 20 million miles to dollars, am I right? Oh, let's send Cyberfly number 57 here into the Monster Island jungle to find the space lizard. I've been itching to try out some new features added after some recent incidents. So if anyone's in the market for some big, bad robots, call me. Now.
Well, that's enough of that. But that does make sense. Harryhausen's birthday and the 65th anniversary of this film are both next month. Did you guys know that? Released.
Yes, we did.
In June 1957. As Jimmy reminded me. I neglected to mention that the Toku Topic is going to be the Soviet side of the space race. Now back to the episode. Well, there you go. But speaking of June 1957, we're going to learn about that and some other important facts in the entertaining info dump that Jimmy likes to write for us, even though there's no longer any contractual obligations. It's just MIFV tradition at this point. So let's get started with that. The Ymir is a scared and confused reptilian alien creature brought to Earth from Venus by astronauts. He exhibits many anthropomorphisms, such as curiosity, rage, and other emotions, indicating intelligence, if not sentience. He's a gentle creature and isn't violent unless provoked. He eludes humans to survive or searches for sulfur to eat. Colonel Robert Bob Calder is the intrepid and square-jawed commander of an American spacecraft that traveled to Venus and brought the Ymir to Earth to be studied to learn how he survives in the harsh environment. When the creature escapes into the countryside, he leads the group that pursues and captures him, always advising them on the Ymir's behavior. His love interest, the confident and capable medical student Marissa Leonardo, accompanies Calder and his group after studying the newborn Ymir with her curious and intelligent father, Dr. Leonardo. She is attracted to Calder, having nursed him back to health after he survived his ship's crash, and flirts with the man while pursuing and later studying the creature. Major General A.D. McIntosh is the stalwart commanding officer who leads an investigation into the rocket's crash and later oversees the pursuit of the Ymir, while also negotiating with the local authorities to learn the creature's whereabouts. The shrewd but naive Pepe is a Sicilian boy who discovers the Ymir egg and sells it to Dr. Leonardo to buy a cowboy hat, quote-unquote, from the country of Texas. He then hides from the authorities for fear of losing the hat. For the most part, the kaiju and human plotlines are unified. While the film is at first focused on the rocket crash, it quickly shifts its focus to the Ymir, after which the character's actions revolve around capturing, studying, or killing the creature. There are a few unconnected subplots, such as Calder wooing Marissa, but they are minor. While not normally hostile, the Ymir is the problem. Dr. Leonardo locks the small newborn Ymir in a cage, but the creature grows to human size overnight and breaks out. After taking refuge in a barn, the Ymir is attacked by the farmer's dog, but the Ymir kills the animal. Calder and his posse arrive, and he tries to drive the Ymir into a cage with a stick. The farmer panics and stabs the Ymir in the back with a pitchfork, enraging the creature, who attacks and nearly kills the farmer before escaping. The police attack the Ymir with machine guns and flamethrowers, but the weapons are ineffective since the creature has no heart or lungs. Calder leads an operation that subdues the creature by dropping electrified nets from a helicopter onto the Ymir. The creature is then taken to the Rome Zoo to be studied. The equipment shorts out, and the now huge monster awakens and breaks out. He fights and maims an elephant while rampaging through the city. He hides in the river Tiber, and soldiers toss grenades into it. The Ymir emerges and destroys Point Sant'Angelo. Several soldiers battle him at a temple, and he kills them. The problem is solved by military might. Calder leads a team of soldiers into the Colosseum where the creature is hiding and shoots the Ymir with a bazooka. With the creature incapacitated, a tank blows out the ledge on which the Ymir lays, and he falls to his death. The screenplay by Bob Williams and Christopher Knopf, based on a story by Charlotte Knight and Ray Harryhausen, is a simple and straightforward science fiction creature feature. The cast is relatively large and has minor subplots, but it remains focused on its main story and progressing the plot. Columbia considered this to be a B picture, so special effects wizard Ray Harryhausen and director Nathan Durand were allotted a small budget. Despite this, the filmmakers managed to travel to Italy for some location filming, thereby giving the film an authentic-looking setting. Harryhausen worked doggedly on the stop-motion effects, creating his first true iconic creature. The Ymir is infused with personality and commands the audience's sympathy. He has far more in common with Mighty Joe than he does the Rhedosaurus in terms of characterization. He's not simply a monster. Harryhausen gave just as much attention to other details, like the believable movements of the nets. The Ymir's fight with the elephant is a highlight, showcasing a master craftsman coming into his own. This is a serious film with a moderate amount of gravitas that, as previously mentioned, engenders much pathos for its creature. With its alien lizards from Venus and rockets capable of visiting other planets, it's a fantastical science fiction film. This isn't an experimental film because it has most of the typical trappings of the science fiction films and creature features of the time. Specifically, it reinforces the style of one of Harryhausen's previous films, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, with its monster-on-the-loose story and special effects. However, it also reinforces the style of 1931's Frankenstein with its misunderstood and arguably innocent monster. While science fiction films were increasingly popular with young adult audiences, this was intended to entertain a general audience. However, Harryhausen has mentioned that it appeals greatly to children. Budget and box office figures are, surprisingly, unavailable. Regardless, the film did well financially thanks to its modest budget. It further solidified Harryhausen as a stop-motion special effects craftsman, and his work here paved the way for his many classic fantasy films. It was generally liked by critics at the time, who praised the special effects. The film is considered a classic by science fiction fans, monster fans, and classic film buffs. It has a 6.3 with 7,200 ratings on IMDb. 20 Million Miles was intended to be filmed in color, but it was shot in black and white due to budget constraints. However, for the film's 50th anniversary in 2007, Harryhausen supervised the colorization by Legend Films. Besides the color, there are minor changes to this edition, such as it beginning in, quote, a fishing village in Sicily, end quote, the fictional Guerra, and not Sperlonga, Italy. There are several forces at play. Fear of the unknown, as seen in the human's response to the Ymir, clashes with the creature's desire to survive. The Ymir is a confused creature in a strange environment, which has abnormal effects on his biology. Indeed, nature itself seems to fight against the Ymir as some sort of intruder, as seen with the dog and the elephant. Science seeks to study and possibly exploit the Ymir, who exhibits human-like behaviors. The more, quote-unquote, sophisticated Americans clash with the bumpkinish local Sicilian authorities over how to respond to the Ymir. Pepe's naive cleverness puts him at odds with the sensible adults. The capable Marissa pushes back against some mild sexism. A few themes are developed in the film. Marissa holds her own with the many men around her, showing she is a capable physician despite inexperience. Pepe's shrewdness is rewarded. Scientific advancement is valued. The civilians learn time and again to listen to experts, although often after near disasters. Human ingenuity is shown to be capable of overcoming alien creatures. While not explored, the Ymir is arguably a victim of misunderstanding who is to be pitied by an audience asking itself, could the creature have been saved? Now that we're on the same page, let's have some Toku Talk on this Harryhausen classic. Alrighty, gentlemen, as the guests and resident Harryhausen superfans in the room, what are your opening thoughts on 20 Million Miles to Earth?
Go ahead, Travis. I'll let you start.
This creature, the Ymir or Ymir or however you want to pronounce it.
Ymir, I've heard I've seen it pronounced and heard it pronounced several different ways. I think Harryhausen himself said pronounced it more like Ymir, or or Ymir. I think it's closer to that. It's actually, for what I found out, they actually never called it that in the movie because there's another word. It's spelled differently, but it's pronounced the same way. It's spelled with an E and not a Y, and it's the name for a potentate in the Middle East, which is why they never use the name. But it comes from Norse mythology.
The creature from this film, the Ymir, is one of my favorites from Harryhausen's whole filmography. I really enjoy this. This, to me, at least in my opinion, is when Harryhausen starts putting in more personality into his creatures. Because prior to this, you had the giant octopus from it came from the sea.
You mean the sextopus?
Yeah, the sextopus. Whoa.
Don't go there, Jimmy. It's Latin. Learn it. Anyway.
And you had the what was it? The Rhedosaurus. So you had some
Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Right. So you had these creatures, but this is the point where I feel like he started including more personality. And watching this movie, it hasn't been that long since I watched the original King Kong from 1933 again. I watched it not too long ago. And I actually have more sympathy for the Ymir in this movie than I did for Kong in that one. And it's just, for me, I think that Harryhausen just really excelled at putting the personality into his creatures, and this is kind of where it all begins.
I've heard in some of my research, there are some people who called this Harryhausen's King Kong.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So, Michael, how about you?
So, we've talked about, Travis and I have talked about on Kaiju Weekly, the reason why we've chosen to go in sort of filmography order with the Harryhausen films was because it has been such a pleasure to see his work progress from Beast all the way up to 20 million miles to Earth. Because if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Travis, this is when Harryhausen begins to perfect the art of like superimposing real humans in with his stop motion statues, correct? Because the his imposing of human characters, like live human actors, in with the maquettes is really gorgeous in this film.
Yeah, he's always done that, and he's always managed to do that from Beast from 20,000 Fathoms through to this film. But every movie he pushes the boundaries on how much the humans interact, like the live action actors interact with the stop motion. And up until now, they've kind of been in the same shot, but not really interacted with each other on the same plane. And this is the first movie where you get that one-to-one interaction between live action actors and a stop motion figure. And it's a little kind of touchy in this film. It's not completely polished, but by his next film, I think it's his next film in order of his filmography, which is The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, he has completely perfected it, because then you get the skeleton interacting with your live action actors. And so, he moves forward with it, but this is where he really first starts experimenting with how far he can go with actors, live action actors interacting with that stop motion figure.
Yeah, and vice versa. It's like in the stop motion interacting with the environment, because one of the things if you notice when you watch Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, how the Redosaurus really doesn't like interact with its environment a whole lot. Whereas in 20 million miles to Earth, you have that scene where, you have the scene where the Ymir, I'm going to probably go back and forth, but you have the Ymir interacting with the dog in the barn and interacting with the farmer. And I noticed too, when I was doing my rewatch of this movie, that Harryhausen's animation of actual like human claymation characters has gotten a lot better in this as well. They're a little less herky jerky, and they're a little bit more, they're a little bit more realistic. I've noticed too. I personally, I actually almost prefer to watch, as much as I love the recolored version because of its vibrant color palette, I almost prefer to watch this particular movie in its original black and white, because I think it does hide a little bit more of its imperfections, and you're able to kind of immerse yourself into this world a little more.
Well, that's interesting. And Jimmy brought this to light in his entertaining info dump, but because when we watched it today, I was actually switching between the black and white and the color, because the first time I saw this, I think like most people, it was in black and white. And so I'm a little averse to colorizing black and white films. Call me weird, but a lot of people feel that way. But
you're weird.
Yeah. Of course you would do that. Anyway. Nope, Jimmy, don't agree with him. So, but I decided to give this one a try, so I was flipping back and forth, and it actually looked a lot better than I thought it did, and that's in large part because Legend Films, who colorized this, they had a whole new method of colorizing this thing. They actually used a computer algorithm to do it. They would literally program in what the colors of all like the clothing and the creatures and the characters and everything. They would program it in there, and then they would use an algorithm to have the computer basically move the color palette on the screen as whatever is on the screen is moving. And it's uncanny what they did. It's ridiculous. And I'm like, this is beyond my pay grade. I don't know how you make something like this work, but they figured out how to do it. And they had Harryhausen supervise. I think this was in 2007 for the 50th anniversary of the film. And they did that because Harryhausen said that he did want to film this in color back in the day.
The fun fact, the same technology that was developed for that recoloring is the same technology that's used in a lot of applications where you now have if you're familiar with Photoshop and you have a color picker, it's the same. It's a similar technology as that. So this was kind of the precursor to that technology, and that computer was, sort of a precursor to like what the technology that we sort of take for granted today. But that's really fascinating. And I did notice, because you compare 20 million miles to Earth to something like It Came From Beneath the Sea, and it is I feel like it's a night and day difference. I'm not going to speak for Travis, but the recolorization in It Came From Beneath the Sea doesn't look great. I actually prefer to watch that one in black and white as well, because it's vibrant and it's colorful, but everything looks either green or pink. So
the 20 Million Miles was one of the three, I think it was Columbia films that Harryhausen did, and they colorized all of them. All three of them. So that and Earth versus the Flying Saucers and this.
If you have the 50th anniversary sets of these DVDs and Blu-rays, then you have the recolored version.
Yeah, that's what I got for the Film Vault here, and that's what we watched today. And what's fun is that you can switch between them on the fly.
Oh wow, that's neat. I didn't know that. For me, I always watch movies the original in the original black and white. I rarely will ever watch a recolored film unless it's like that's the only version that's available. So yeah, the times I have watched recolored films, when I watched the colored version of 20 Million Miles, or no, not 20. This one's 20 Million Miles. This one was good. Yeah. But It Came From Beneath the Sea. It was just awful. Absolutely awful. So yeah, I always prefer. I like black and white films in general. So I like watching the black and white versions.
And it's interesting that you guys were talking about the next movie and comparing Harryhausen's work in this to those next movies, but he actually did say that the Ymir animating that helped him prepare for the Cyclops.
Yeah, and you can definitely see it. You can see it that this was the precursor to the Cyclops, because there's a lot of similarities in the movements and the body type that you get in this.
Well, that's also because he cannibalized some of the armature for the Cyclops.
True.
Right. He even cannibalized like the head sculpture as well. Because if you look really close at the Cyclops and the Ymir side by side, you can really pinpoint those similarities that he did. Like obviously the Ymir has a beak and the Cyclops has a more traditional human looking mouth, but and then one eye, but you can obviously tell like some of those, you could tell where he borrowed some of those features, or we can tell where he borrowed that parts of that armature.
Yeah. I mean, those armatures were not cheap. So
they weren't. No.
Yeah, he had to do what we made the joke earlier about it, but it is true. The octopus, quote unquote octopus or sextopus, from It Came From Beneath the Sea, it only had 6 legs instead of 8 because it was expensive to do, and he decided to just cut 2 legs off, or not make them to save money.
Yeah. And it's another one of the most famous repurposing of an armature was Willis O'Brien with King Kong to go from King Kong to Kinko. And if anyone who doesn't know what Kinko is, it's Son of Kong. That is the name given to the white gorilla in Son of Kong. So
did you say Kiko?
Oh, I said King. I'm sorry.
Or did you say Kinko?
I said
where people used to go get stuff printed.
No. I said Kinko. I'm sorry. I said Kinko. That is the name of my.
You went to Kinko's. Yeah, Kinko shame.
That is the. Oh boy, that's a good one. That's almost better than Sexy Puss. But.
I'm with Jimmy on that one. You deserved it.
No, it is Kiko. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Kinko is the name of my girlfriend's cat.
And the print shop.
And the print shop. And definitely not the Sexy Puss. So
but you can also see the Ymir in the Kraken.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the Kraken is like, I think, the most obvious or
the Kraken,
blatant.
for those who don't know, the Kraken from the original Clash of the Titans.
Right, but that wasn't him cannibalizing. That was just him reusing.
No, that was just a very similar design. Yeah,
right.
But he also said he went through a lot of different designs for the Ymir. Yes. There were different points where it was gonna have horns, it was gonna have one eye, it was going to be fatter. He went through a lot of different sketches for this thing.
Originally, the Ymir was supposed to look closer to a Cyclops, or look closer to the Cyclops we got from Seventh Voyage.
Yeah. And if you pick up that book, The Art of Ray Harryhausen, I think is what it's called, or whatever that.
Which I'm still trying to get into the film vault. Or the library, I should say.
It came out just like what, last year or year before.
Yeah, it was like a couple years ago. I have that particular book. I should have brought it with me. Daggone it.
Yeah,
you can see some of the concept art that he did for the Ymir, and you're right. It looks exactly like the Cyclops. So you can see where he just kind of like, okay, this concept worked. We didn't use it, but it still looked good. So I'm going to take and adapt it for the next film. And so that's just, those are just some of the things that you get when you're watching these films in Ray Harryhausen's filmography in order, because growing up and watching them, I just watched which one came on TV. So sometimes I watched The Mysterious Island, sometimes I watched Clash of the Titans, it just whatever was on. But seeing them in the order that he made them, you really get to pick up on just how much he evolves as a creator, but also how much he reuses and adapts his designs, for other films further down the line.
I'm just a little disappointed that you guys didn't start your Harryhausen series with his actual first movie. Anyway, so Travis, you brought up something that I do think we need to talk about, which is you said that this was a very sympathetic monster. And my goodness, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, Jimmy, tell us all about your experience with the Ymir.
Jimmy.
Oh.
Jimmy. Nobody cares.
What? Nobody cares that when he was on Venus during the war in space, he saw a whole pack of those things in their native habitat.
I think he's making it
on
up.
Venus?
I think he's making it up. I don't care what you say, Jimmy. You can threaten me all you want to, sir. Laser pistols aren't allowed in the recording studio, so nah.
Well, you know what they say.
Never stopped him, let me tell you.
Jimmys are from Mars. Ymirs are from Venus.
Don't humor him anyway. So sympathetic. That to say the Ymir is sympathetic is an understatement. If only people had just left the poor thing alone.
Yeah. And
what was the moment? What do you think was the moment where they crossed the line and there was just like there's no going back?
It was stupid Pepe. It was Pepe. It's Pepe's fault.
Pepe.
You're gonna blame it on the Kenny. You're gonna blame it on the most Italian, whoever Italianed.
Yes. Pepe, you should have left the monster alone. What are you thinking?
Right. Well, you're not thinking right.
What are you thinking of, Pepe? You dummy. You dumb. Come on. Let's go.
Where's Jet? Where's Jet? Oh, there he is. Sure. Yep. Good thing you sent him that text message, Jimmy. Anyway, yeah. So you blame Pepe?
I blame Pepe, yes.
Yeah. What did Pepe do? At what point did Pepe force the Ymir to cross the line?
He opened the jar.
Oh, to find the space turd?
Yeah, the space turd, yeah. The glowing space turd, yes. The glowing... Actually, it doesn't look like it. Actually, no, to be fair, it doesn't look like a space turd. It looks like a big space enema. Like a big old... It looks like one of those big, like, petroleum jelly enemas that you use when you're a little constipated.
Okay.
You say that. You say it's Pepe's fault. I think it was when he got the pitchfork in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely think the barn scene is the turning point, really, for the Ymir. But I will say this, though. The Ymir, even after the barn scene, even after he's captured, he always attacks out of defense. He never attacks out of maliciousness. And even when he attacks the elephant later on in the film, the elephant is still breathing when he leaves. Like he doesn't kill the elephant. So the Ymir is not trying to hurt anyone. It is just protecting itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is very much like King Kong, where it's been brought into a completely alien environment and it doesn't know what to do. I mean, as far as we know, the poor thing's a newborn, so that's already weird. And then it's in what is technically an unnatural environment, and its body is responding in an unnatural fashion to the foreign environment. That's why the thing keeps getting bigger. They said it's the Earth atmosphere reacting to its metabolism or something, because
science mumbo jumbo. Sure.
Yeah. Pseudoscience. We all love the pseudoscience, especially here on Monster Island. It's as good an explanation as
exactly.
Exactly. Of course, Jimmy, they're not that big on Venus. And I will say, I do wish that the script had leaned a little bit more into that angle. People saying, if we just left the thing alone.
Yeah, it was really kind of surprising. You didn't get a whole lot of the but we have to protect the animal, those people, we didn't see a whole lot of that.
That wasn't very common in 1950s monster movies in America. Yeah. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms is one of the rare exceptions where that's brought up. But I would have thought that
if any movie at all needed to have that kind of character, it was this one, because if we're supposed to empathize with the Ymir, it would make sense to have that kind of character in this movie, at least as a counterpoint to our very stoic, traditional American military person and pretty nurse.
This highlights one of the biggest flaws and drawbacks to the early Harryhausen films, and a lot of Harryhausen. I won't even say the early ones, but a lot of Harryhausen films is that his intent in the way he creates the characters and the creatures is not always done and given justice by the directors, because he is not a director, and usually, even though he has a lot of input, especially later on in his filmography, he has a lot more input on how the films are made. In these early ones, he's kind of a slave to the whims of the directors and the producers, and he puts as much sympathy and everything as he can into the creature, but that doesn't mean the director is going to film the rest of it that way.
Well, be nice to the director of this one. He's a fellow Nathan Duran, and Harryhausen called him Jerry.
That makes me trust him even less.
But this was one of 3 movies that he did with Harryhausen.
Right.
The other ones being Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and First Men on the Moon.
Yeah.
And Mr. Duran won an Oscar for How Green Was My Valley.
But after this film, and I think, I'm pretty sure it's after this film that Harryhausen starts becoming more, you could say controlling, but really he just has a lot more input in the scenes that are being shot, in the way the films are shot, and the way the actors are being done. And he becomes a lot more like an assistant director in the future films. But up to this point, he's not doing that. He is basically just subject to the whims of the directors. And all of these original Harryhausen films, these early ones, these black and white era ones, the Harryhausen effects and the creature designs and the characters that he creates are outstanding, but the failings of the film all come from everything outside of that. Usually the acting, the script, the directing.
I saw a lot of stuff that talked about how they felt like the Harryhausen films, particularly the early ones, had the genius that was Harryhausen, and then everything else couldn't quite live up to it. He said that way. So Willis O'Brien only ever got to, make a couple of movies to his name. But one of them was King Kong. And they said, like, the thing about King Kong is that everything's firing on all cylinders. And Harryhausen didn't have the advantage because he was basically making B movies for a while. And these critics' opinions, these scholars' opinions, the scripts and the acting were not on par with the special effects. And they thought Harryhausen deserved better.
So looking forward to his future films after this, from a movie standpoint, just from the quality of the movies themselves, you can definitely say that everything after this point in time is better than what he's done up to this point, or at least the films themselves. Now you can argue favorites on creatures and special effects that he does, like the Ymir is one of my favorites, but I think objectively the quality of the complete films, the everything after this point starts to improve.
Yeah, actually, the Ymir was one of Harryhausen's personal favorites.
Yeah, and I think you get that coming through in the character and how he portrayed it. That you can tell there was a lot of care and a lot of love put into this creature.
This was one of the first creatures he did. He wanted it to be bipedal and have a human shape because he thought he could get more expression out of it, which is true compared to a quadruped. And this was also the first time we had that kind of trademark Harryhausen pose with the almost always slightly bent elbows. And, I read one guy who thought that made the Ymir look too unnatural and stiff, but I'm like, it's a little more interesting to look at for sure.
Yeah.
As a default pose. T-pose for dominance.
Come at me, bro.
But if we want to talk about some negatives for this movie, one negative I have is this movie. We're told about an adventure that happened before this movie even began, and it's the way they describe it. It's like, oh, I actually would kind of be interested to have seen some of that stuff. I understand budget wise and time wise why they didn't do it, but it's like, yeah, there's a whole other movie that is a prequel to this movie.
Yeah. I mean, like when they quote unquote, quite by accident discovered that the Ymir is weak to electricity. How do you accidentally electrocute something? Someone please explain that to me.
You have a few drinks. You have a few drinks. You get a little crazy. You get a little too close to the power lines. It happens, man. It happens. Don't judge.
I mean, I'm sure there are like thousands of people who are accidentally electrocuted every year for different reasons. True.
So are you saying that Colonel Calder had some space whiskey with him, had a little too much, and then it's like, this is a good idea. Electrocuting the little Venusian critters.
They just had a bug zapper on board.
It's exactly what I'm saying. Okay, so I have a question.
Oh,
since when do they start building spaceships out of concrete?
Why do you? Because the interior of the ship looks very industrial.
Looks suspiciously like the basement of an apartment building.
That was a recycled set.
Yeah, just pointing that out.
Yeah, but like I said, it was a recycled set. I'm actually trying to see where did they get that? Oh, it was reused from a movie called The Kane Mutiny, which starred Humphrey Bogart. Yeah, that was how little this didn't have a giant budget. They were reusing a lot of things.
No, but thankful, what they were able to accomplish on the budget they have, it is really astounding.
I'm guessing most of it went toward flying to Italy.
Yeah.
Which was one of Harryhausen's impetuses for making this movie, because he wanted a vacation in Italy.
Yeah, he always wanted to go to Italy, and so he used this opportunity to take a trip to Italy.
Because the earlier drafts of his not the script, but the story treatment, the rocket was going to land in my backyard,
Lake Michigan.
Well, Lake Michigan. I grew up right next to Lake Michigan, so but then he moved it to Italy so he could get the vacation.
Yeah, the final action scene was going to take place in Chicago, actually, in the original treatments.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and then it was moved to Rome, and then it ends at the Colosseum naturally.
Yeah, the climax of the climax of the film was supposed to, and I'm not fooling, but it was supposed to be the Ymir climbing the Sears Tower.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have been even more King Kong like.
Yeah, I was going to add that that just lends to the fact that this is Ray Harryhausen's King Kong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amusing to think about that. Yeah.
Another fun fact about this movie: this is the last movie that Ray Harryhausen does that is set in the present, because every other movie after this is set either in the distant future or in the distant past.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Sword. This is this is before he embraced his he fully embraced his sword and sandal period.
Mm-hmm. The fantasy period.
The fantasy epics. Yeah, the fantasy epics, which I think are some of his best works, some of the fantasy epics.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's that goes into what I was saying, like the quality of the films improve after this point, and I am one of the people who thinks it's because Ray Harryhausen had more control. Now, I have heard from some of the actors, in documentaries and stuff, that they didn't necessarily appreciate how controlling he became after this point, but the quality definitely improved because of it.
Well, he actually did direct some of the scenes in this. He directed the Italy scenes.
Right.
Partly because there was going to be a lot of special effects in them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I will say the script in this, it's serviceable. If you're familiar with 50s sci-fi and monster movies, it's pretty standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nothing like I honestly don't find the human characters all that compelling in this.
I don't know. We got the feisty nurse. I mean,
yeah, but
one of her first lines is, "I'm not a nurse, I'm a doctor, or almost a doctor."
I mean, yeah, there's that. There's her. She's great, but I just don't think that there's the cast is not what the human cast, I should say. And this
you don't like Pepe, who thinks Texas is a country.
Yeah, the country of Texas. I want to order a hat and be like the cowboy.
Are you telling me true fact? I was like, kid, that's redundant.
The cheesy acting and the hammy dialogue, it just so ridiculous in this film.
About as ridiculous as Sicilian cops having flamethrowers. When were flamethrowers standard issue for police officers?
Well, I don't know what kind of crime happens in Italy, so who knows?
That requires flamethrowers?
Rats.
Big rats.
Lots of rats.
Big rats.
Big rats. Nezera was here first.
This was the precursor to Rat's Night of Terror, which was an Italian horror film.
This is true. That's what happened. So see, they needed the flamethrowers for that. I think we figured it out finally.
I would go so far as saying even the music in this one is kind of
there's an
lackluster.
entire special feature on the Blu-ray about the soundtrack.
Really?
I learned some very interesting things.
Let
me find that
I
for
found the music in this one very lackluster. I think that, again,
you say that.
I think the music in his epics in the future are better. This one, I just was kind of like, it was very generic.
It was pretty middling. I have to agree.
Maybe, but take a look at this. This is the name of the composer. Just try to pronounce that.
Mishka Bakalenikov.
Yeah.
Bakalenikov.
Yep.
Yeah. Misha Bakalenikov.
Yes. This was the guy who was who's usually hired by Columbia to do their B movies, and they usually just use stock music for the B movies. And Bakalenikov hired himself to do this, and he would use a lot of the music from past movies, but he would kind of tweak it a little bit, or he would completely reuse it. But he did write some original pieces for this, but. And he also put in some interesting little touches, like the bigger the Ymir gets, the more instruments in the orchestra will play the Ymir's theme.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. But he was also very good at getting stuff done quickly. And here's the thing. This movie has 95 music cues, 49 of which were written by Bakalenikov, and most movies at this time only had 25 music cues. But you should see the things that he was borrowing from to do this.
Yeah, there's just something.
Oh my gosh.
It really felt very lackluster to me. I guess because I'm so used to the epic kind of the fantasy films that Harryhausen does, later on in his filmography, and the absolutely just mind-blowingly great scores that they have for those films, because my goodness, especially Sinbad and Clash of the Titans, those have fantastic scores.
His scoring was pretty simple. He was usually 4-note chords. So
I would go as far as to say that even 100 million years BC has a better score than this.
You like that for 2 other reasons.
No, it's not because of the boobs, Nathan. Come on, give me the benefit of the doubt.
I like it for Raquel.
For the boobs?
Oh my goodness! No, not just boobs. Raquel Welch is such a fantastically beautiful woman, but she's also a decent actress. You don't really get that in that film, but in other films,
there's like maybe 2 paragraphs of dialogue in that
probably
movie.
But no, just to let you know where this guy was pulling this music, he got it came from Beneath the Sea and Earth versus the Flying Saucers, and that music which he used as the theme for this movie was used in a Three Stooges movie where they went to outer space.
Okie dokie.
He also got this was a popular piece. It was called Trial and Escape. It's 6 minutes long, and it was from a spy movie called Talk of the Town. He also used a piece of music for the rocket crash that was actually from a drama, and it was a scene that involved a drunk. It's called Pa Warns Rudolph.
Okay.
So I guess they decided, well, it's a crashing rocket. It's kind of like a drunk.
I was going to say, is Pa Warns Rudolph. That's the sequel song to Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer.
You're awful. You are awful. Do you guys have anything else to say before we move on to the Toku topic?
I want to go home.
Actually, Oh, calm down, Travis.
Random fact, Rick Baker, when he was a kid, when he watched this movie, his mother told him that they made the Ymir by shaving a squirrel.
Okay. There's a joke there, but I'm going to refrain from using it. Okay. Moving on, Toku Topic.
Yes. You know, I'm the kaiju guy now thanks to the Monster Island Film Vault, but before that I was the superhero guy. I wonder if there's a way I could combine those.
Hey, Nathan.
Travis from Kaiju Weekly?
Yeah, I'm here because I need a co-host for a new Toku Heroes podcast.
Oh? What's it called?
Shin. Standing by. Complete.
That's right, heroes. We are the Henshin Men, a tokusatsu superheroes appreciation podcast.
Join us as we watch several episodes of a TV series from the wide world of Henshin heroes and discuss their merits and cultural significance.
Starting with one of my all-time favorites, the original Kamen Rider from 1971.
We'll give out awards for things like the best action scenes and crazy what the Henshin moments.
So hear us every Monday in your favorite podcatcher to get your weekly Rider kicks.
Gotta go, because we only have a minute to Henshin it.
Kenny, I'm starting a podcast. Recruit me a co-host with attitude.
What the heck? I thought we put that teleporter in storage. Michael? Next time you want me on Kaiju Weekly, tell Jimmy to...
Drop the act, Nathan. This is not the Monster Island Film Vault.
Okay, fine. But what's going on?
I'm having you join me on The Power Trip, a journey through the Power Rangers franchise. It's a podcast version of the article series I'm writing for Kaiju Ramen magazine.
Oh, interesting.
We'll spend a year analyzing the Power Rangers franchise, dedicating an episode to each season and movie.
Ah, I see. So we'll be doing an overview and talking about them in broad strokes.
Exactly. We'll discuss Ranger teams, the villains, the theme songs, and so much more.
Can we give out fun awards for stuff like the best fight scene and the craziest moments like I do on Henshin Men?
You bet.
More phenomenal. When do we start?
We drop episodes every 2 weeks starting Tuesday, January 4th, 2022.
You know what that means, Michael.
It's morphin' time.
All right. And now it's time for to move on to the Toku topic. Oh, great. Apparently something interesting is happening on Mr. Winter's live stream. What is it this time?
You see, I told Hammond for years he couldn't rely on cloned dinosaurs to keep his customers' attention. He needed to spice things up if he ever reopened the park. People get bored so easily these days. I mean, why do you think I switch between robotics, genetics, and cybernetics at the drop of Mr. Gold's Stetson? Oh, is that our Venusian giant behind that big tree? Nope. Anyway, to keep your audience's interest, you have to give them something new and exciting. Strange, you might say. Hence, where our humble little island comes in. Kaiju. It's in the name. Well, the Japanese, that is. Strange beast. Oh, is that our boy? Ah, it's just that big turtle Oscar. He captured him in Indiana. Dime store Gamera, I call him. But as I was saying, the competition never tried this until after Hammond died. And what did they do? The Indominus. What a joke. The Ymir can take that roided up Rex. Did I ever tell you about the time I genetically engineered a giant chameleon? Well, you see.
All right, you know what? Enough with his live stream. Let's get to the Toku topic. So as I mentioned before, it's going to be on the Soviet side of the space race because, interestingly, this movie came out just a few short months before Sputnik launched. And obviously it starts with a rocket crashing, so there was definitely a lot of interest in space at that time, but everything changed once Sputnik was launched. And apparently my co-hosts are taking naps.
Well, I mean,
No, I'm just listening. I don't have anything to add to that.
What do you want us to say?
But if you want to learn,
Well, we can talk about Sputnik, or we can talk about, we can talk about potatoes.
Potatoes.
Russian potatoes.
Okay. But if you want to learn more about
Laika the dog,
we're going to get to Laika actually. But
I like a Laika.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, Laika is also the name of a stop motion animation studio. See connections.
It's also the name of a camera.
yes, I like a lot of Laika.
Yeah. Anyway,
Come on, Laika. Come on, Laika.
So if you want to learn more about the other side of the space race, go listen to MIFV episode 15, which was on Battle in Outer Space with my friend Luke Giaconetti from Earth Destruction Directive. Anyway,
who is a scholar and a gentleman.
Indeed. So both the United States and the Soviet Union started satellite development shortly after World War II, as you would expect. And according to Russian space expert Anatoly Zak, that is actually his name, the satellite projects took place in the backdrop of the Cold War from the 1940s to the 1980s. And obviously, with the strained relationships between the United States and the Soviet Union, this ended up becoming a very big deal. And, even NATO was on high alert because of this, in large part because they knew that the technology developed from this could be used for other things. They did this, interestingly, I'm sure you guys have heard about this. Both the Americans and the Soviets scooped up some German scientists to help them with this.
Yes, Project Paperclip.
Yes.
The one that the United States most famously snagged up was Wernher von Braun, who was the chief architect of the Saturn V rocket that sent the Apollo astronauts to the moon between 1968 and 1972.
Yep.
And the Soviets got an edge because they snagged some German V2 rocket tech. So the United States started developing some satellites around 1945 with the Navy's Bureau of Aeronautics. That sounds very official. Of course, you would know all about it, Jimmy. You're just a kid in a candy store with today's Toku Topic because space. So the United States was working on a satellite design to, quote unquote, send off scientific hardware. And then a year later, the Rand Corporation, under commission from the Air Force, started working on a, quote unquote, world circling spaceship that would.
The Rand Corporation?
Yes.
My comic book nerd ears are perking up.
Oh, care to share that with the kaiju lovers?
Well, Rand is Iron Fist.
Yes.
Danny Rand.
And
he
unfortunately, he made the worst of the Netflix shows, according to most people.
Well, he also has the Rand Corporation, and that's his, because he is a billionaire.
Did he make a world circling spaceship?
He might have. I
Probably
don't know.
Did. It's a comic book.
He punched a dragon in the heart.
Yes. But they were hoping, this Rand Corporation was hoping to make a satellite that could circle the world as early as 1951. But the U.S. administration didn't have much enthusiasm about it because they were, quote, resting on the laurels of the perceived Air Force and nuclear supremacy in the Cold War with the USSR, end quote. That changed pretty quickly a few years later, as we'll see. Meanwhile, the Soviets' rocket program continued into the 1950s and got little attention under, and I hope I say this guy's name right, Mikhail Tikhonov. He developed I think it's the N24. It's NII, or is it NII? I'm not sure. Rockets, along with the famous rocket designer who just got out of a gulag. Tell me if you recognize this name, Travis. You seem like the type that would know this. Sergei Korolev.
Korolev.
Yes. Just got
Is it
out of a
Korolev or
gulag.
Korolev?
Korolev. That's what I have. That's how I have it down. Korolev.
Okay.
Korolev.
Yeah, Korolev. Yeah, that's right. I do remember. I recognize this name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was inspired by the work of a guy from the 30s. Russian names are nutty. Konstantin Solyovsky. Konstantin. Yeah, it probably is a Konstantin. I just use a Konstantin in Russian. Yes, the pioneer of calculating rocket fuel. After Stalin died, the program received great support from his successor Nikita Khrushchev, who wanted to use rocket power to assert superiority over the United States.
Yep.
The Soviet Academy of Sciences and several Soviet ministers approved a satellite program in 1954. And then in the United States, President Dwight Eisenhower approved a satellite program in 1955. And they planned on launching a satellite into orbit with the IGY, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And the IGY lasted from July 1st, 1957 to December 31st, 1958. The Sputnik program, that's the big one, was approved January 30th, 1956. Receiving personal approval by Khrushchev a few weeks later. And then they kept refining their technology with the R-7 rocket. And then on October 4th, 1957, Sputnik got launched.
Yep.
That was the moment everything changed. Suddenly, the Americans were taking this a heck of a lot more seriously.
Right. Because like you said, at this point in time, the Americans just, were resting on their laurels. We've proven that our technology is more superior in the wars, and we can just kind of assume that the Soviets will never be able to reach us. And then all of a sudden, the Soviets surpassed us.
Yep. President Eisenhower responded 5 days later. He waited a while. With a press conference, and one of the source I looked at described it as casual indifference. I mean, I guess you could be that way. I mean, Sputnik was just about the size of a beach ball, and but it shook the American sense of post-war technological superiority.
Yep.
But Sputnik, weirdly enough, as big of a deal as it was, it didn't last very long in outer space. It wasn't a very good satellite.
Now that's Sputnik 1.
Sputnik 1. There was a Sputnik 2, which I did find some stuff about Sputnik 2 in my research.
Well, there's a Sputnik 3 as well, too.
Oh, really? What did they do with Sputnik 3? I didn't see a Sputnik 3.
So Sputnik 3 was a Soviet satellite that was launched in 1958. The scientific satellite carried a large array of instruments for geophysical research, and it was the Soviet counterpart to the American satellite of Vanguard 1.
Yes, I saw some stuff about Vanguard 1. By the way, the name of the Russian space program is Roskosmos. Roskosmos. And it is...
I do not like it better than Space Force. I like Space Force better.
Yes. And it is only one of 3 space programs with launch capabilities. The other ones being the European Space Agency... and, of course, NASA. Don't you have a cousin or something who works at NASA? You don't like to talk about it? Of course you don't. Anyway, despite a lack of funding, time pressure, and the inability to test hardware, Korolev was determined to launch a payload to the moon. So that's when things really started ramping up. So on January 2nd, 1959, the Luna 1 mission launched to the moon, but it flew past the moon instead of impacting it, but which was the intent. So they needed to make sure that they could actually get there first. It missed by 6,000 kilometers. And then on September 14th, 1959, Luna 2 succeeded, and it became the first human-made object to arrive on the moon.
Missed it by that much.
Yep. And then a month later, you had Luna 3, which took the first photograph of the moon's far side. You'll start to notice a pattern here. The Russians get a lot of firsts in the space race.
Yeah, they do. Because we underestimated their capabilities.
That is for sure. And then one of the authors I looked at argued that the space race, this is funny. We tend as Americans to think of the space race as being this very contentious thing as part of the Cold War. But one of the authors I looked at argued that it actually, weirdly enough, fostered cordiality between the US and the Soviets in the 60s.
Yeah, it was pretty anticlimactic.
Yeah. President Kennedy congratulated Khrushchev when the Soviet Union launched a probe to Venus. Yes, I know it triggers you, Jimmy, but whatever. And that was on February 13th, 1961. So despite tensions and competition, both governments stressed the human achievement and advancement of space exploration. Very idealistic. Secretary of State John Foster Dulles saw Sputnik as Soviet propaganda that would chip away at U.S. prestige. A counter-launch couldn't be done immediately, but after the launch of Sputnik II, you mentioned Sputnik II, which Sputnik II had Laika the dog.
Yes.
Here's a fun fact. So Laika the dog was the first animal to be launched into space. Did you know what Laika's U.S. nickname was?
Oh, I used to know.
I think I know.
This.
Hang on. I think I used to know that. I think I know this. Oh, damn it.
It was Kaputnik, wasn't it? No. That was
that was a failed
Kaputnik.
satellite.
It was Kapupnik.
No.
Kapuchnik.
Nope.
Damn it. Snoopy.
That would have been great, but no.
Clifford.
No, I actually used to.
Of course, Michael wants to launch Clifford into space.
I do, but that's beside the point. I'm trying to
You
think.
realize if you launched Clifford into space, you would come back as a space monster, right? This is how kaiju work.
He wants to
He's
make
not really
Clifford
a kaiju.
the first kaiju on the moon.
There's been several kaiju on the moon already. What are you talking about? No, Mutnik.
Damn
Sputnik,
it!
That's what it was. I knew it was something with Sputnik. I because I have heard
Yep.
it. I knew it. I just couldn't remember it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And unfortunately, Laika didn't survive.
No. Well, she was never meant to
She either
survive.
just she wasn't intended to. She either died from the elements while in orbit, or she died in re-entry. So no one really knows. But so you had that, and then you had the quote unquote fiery failure of Vanguard 1, the US satellite.
Mm-hmm.
That poor puppy.
Yeah. So Dulles used Sputnik to frame the Soviets as, quote, the chief war makers in the world, end quote, despite the satellites being used for scientific purposes. So, President Kennedy trying to be cordial about it. Not everybody in the administration was necessarily being cordial about it. But after the initial panic and...
Do you remember Kennedy's speech about the moon?
We are going to go to the moon. Yep.
We are gonna go to the moon, and we're gonna build a great civilization on the moon.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
They are hard. Yes.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win, and the others too. There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind, and its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again. Cooperation may never come again. Yeah.
I think... No, I don't think... You're giving Jimmy goosebumps there. Ooh.
No, this was the
Yes.
part that was... This was the part that really is one of the most famous things, but because he says he explains the cost of it all. To be sure, all this costs us all a good deal of money. And then he explains the budget. But he says that, however, I think we're going to do it. And I think we must pay what needs to be paid. I don't think we ought to waste any money, but I think we ought to do the job. And this will be done in the decade of the 60s. It may be done while some of you are still here at school, at this college and university, because this was at Rice University. So, yeah. Says, I am delighted that this university is playing a part in putting a man on the moon, and as part of a great national effort of the United States of America.
Yeah, it's interesting how there was cordiality, but there was still a lot of competition. So it's almost like they would be publicly cordial, but they were kind of secretly like, let's see if we can beat them.
Yeah, well, within that same speech, he explains, he says, within these last 19 months, at least 45 satellites have circled the Earth. Some 40 of them were made in the United States of America, and they were far more sophisticated and supplied far more knowledge to the people of the world than those of the Soviet Union.
Yep. We're better, guys. We're better. Yep. But yeah, Kennedy and Khrushchev, they would exchange congratulatory telegrams about space exploration whenever one of them, one of their respective countries did something. This was especially true when Yuri Gagarin became the first man to orbit Earth in April 1961. That was another one of the first that the Soviets got. First man in space.
Yuri Gagarin.
And it was used as an avenue for peace and dialogue. And then the Bay of Pigs happened. So...
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, you were talking about how they were kind of cordial with each other. When Yuri Gagarin, when he came back to Earth, he was treated like a hero, not just in Soviet Russia, but he made appearances in the United States and went on tour in the United States. So, he was considered a very important figure even to Americans at that time.
Yeah. And Korolev, he started working on rocket designs that would become the Soviet Vostok, and to do a fully automated capsule that could hold a human passenger in a spacesuit. May 1960, they tested a prototype of this and it orbited Earth 64 times before failing re-entry. And then they tested it again with 2 more dogs. You know the names of these dogs?
Oh,
righty and lefty.
No, I can't remember them.
Yeah, it's I hope I'm saying this right. It's Beka and Strika, or it's Strika.
Oh yes,
Beika.
Yeah, Beka and Strika.
Yeah, Beka and Strika. So they were launched into low Earth orbit, and they actually came back, and they were the first living creatures to be launched into space and be recovered. Yeah, again, another first.
They were aboard the Korob Sputnik II, or what was eventually called Sputnik V. It was the 5th actual Sputnik to go out into space. And Beka or Belka is translated as squirrel, and Strika or Strelka is little arrow.
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
that's
so
cute.
Stroka the little arrow.
Yes. And the Beka the squirrel.
And Beka the squirrel.
Yes.
Beka the squirrel, and Stroka your little arrow.
Yeah.
But that, even though, and they are stuffed. When they died, they were stuffed and they are in a museum. You can actually see them.
Oh, they were taxidermied. Oh,
yeah,
that's really cool.
But what's interesting is even though they were the 2 most famous animals and they were the ones that had names, they were not the only animals on Sputnik V. You had a gray rabbit. You had a gray rabbit, 42 mice, 2 rats, a bunch of flies, and several plants and fungi. And all of the passengers survived.
Wow, that's wonderful. Plants and fungi. I'm sure our friend Dr. Dorff is all about that. Those Russian fungi.
Yes, Martin. They are
You're not him.
But they were.
I don't know if he takes kindly to imposters or not. You might want to watch yourself, Michael.
I'm not scared of the good doctor because I am the good doctor.
I've met the good doctor. You are most certainly not him. Anyway, so we mentioned Gagarin.
Something. Hold on. You want me to give you another fun fact about Belka and Strika?
Oh, tell us.
So they had descendants that were still alive as of 2015.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
that actually is interesting.
They the descendants actually attended the Zvezda. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the Zvezda Museum in Tomilino, which is outside of Moscow, where the animals were stuffed and on display, and they took a picture there with them. So yeah, it is kind of interesting.
So Khrushchev, in response to something that Kennedy said about Gagarin, that momentous occasion in space history. Oh, what's that? What do you got?
Okay, sorry. Strika, I'm sitting here reading all this stuff on Wikipedia while you're talking. So Strika, after she returned from space, she went on to live and have 6 puppies with a male dog who was named Pushak. And Pushak also was involved in a lot of the ground-based space experiments. So he never went into space, but he was also involved in the space program. And one of the 6 puppies of Strika, that went the dog that went into space, one of those puppies was given to President John F. Kennedy by Khrushchev in 1961. Really? So John F. Kennedy owned a puppy from a space dog, yeah.
A Russian space dog.
The puppy's name was Pushka.
That is name of new band. Russian space dogs. Yes.
The dog's name was Pushinka, and the puppies were nicknamed Pupkins by JFK.
Pupkins. That is one of the best things I have ever heard. Pupkins.
That is the cute. That's I know how Yuri Gagarin's story ends, and we know how JFK's story ends. So having a nice fluffy puppy named Pushinka, who was born from a space dog given to JFK, that was nice. In the middle of a Cold War, the president of the Soviet Union gave a space dog to the president of the United States. That's just nice.
Yep. Yeah. It just goes to show you. Yeah, they were competing with each other. Probably didn't really like each other all that much as countries, but they could be nice. Like I said, the space race was also an opportunity for dialogue and for peace.
Yeah. It kind of was a gloat. It's like, hey, this dog, this dog was the son of the bitch that went into space.
That's funny.
That has the Jimmy seal of approval. So
all right, Mark Chance.
Yes, Jimmy, of course you had a space dog when you were a kid. Whatever. But speaking of Kennedy, Gagarin, and Khrushchev, when Kennedy made some comments about Gagarin, Khrushchev was quoted as saying, quote, "I express the hope that the Soviet Union and the United States may work together on the matter of mastering the universe. Considering the mastering of the universe is part of the great task of creating peace without armaments of war," end quote. Mastering the universe. That seems like a very Russian thing to say.
I have the power.
Obvious joke is obvious.
Yeah, obvious joke is obvious. I am Skeletor.
Yes. Yeah. So in the exchanges like these were pretty common, and then, there was the space challenge speech that we talked about. But here's some more fun little firsts that Roscosmos had throughout most of the 60s. They also sent the first woman into space. Do you know her name, Travis?
No, that one I do not.
Valentina Tereshkova.
Was she pretty?
Oh, Tereshkova. I don't know. I didn't see any pictures of her.
Michael, don't objectify this woman who was a scientist who were involved in sciences and did an amazing thing.
Anyway, but yeah, that was in
Valentina Tereshkova.
Yeah, Tereshkova. Yes, 1963. Yes, and the Russians also had the first spacewalk performed by Alexei Leonov in 1965. Yep. Just racking up all of those firsts. So I mentioned the IGY. That was the International Geophysical Year. That was an organization started in 1957 that had 60,000 scientists from 66 countries, including the U.S. and the Soviet Union, dedicated to studying space. Jimmy's favorite thing. And the UN, interestingly, the Soviet Union did propose to the UN to make a UN space program, but to the General Assembly, and predictably, the Americans shut it down. However, they did make the Committee for the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space in 1959 to help the IGY. And it led to the passage of UN Resolution 1721, which basically said outer space was subject to international law and no country could lay claim to it. So basically all of outer space is international waters.
Yep.
So tension started mounting again in 1963 when reconnaissance satellites were to be launched. The Soviets saw this as espionage, while the U.S., through Senator Albert Gore Sr., that should be a familiar name to all of us Americans.
Was he Russian Chad?
So Senator Gore Sr. argued that, quote, military activities in space cannot be divorced from the question of military activities on Earth. So, yeah, tension started mounting again. And then the Soviets started running into some setbacks. Their first big one was in 1967 when the cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov died when his parachute... when the parachute that was supposed to help his space capsule, the Soyuz 1, land gently, it failed to open. But he did become he became an unfortunate first for the Soviets, the first in-flight death of a man in space.
Yep.
Really huge embarrassment for the Russian space program.
What'd they do with his body?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. The superpowers signed the, quote, first memorandum of understanding, a plan of cooperation for weather satellites, 1963, with the help of NASA Rep. Hugh Dryden.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he's one of your heroes, Jimmy.
Sounds like to me.
Yeah. Jet is being is continually employed. Yes, Jet. I'm sure you're having a good time today. This is why Jimmy brought you here.
Hugh Dryden, he was very, very important when it came to the moon missions, wasn't he? I
yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
And then the weather satellite. Yeah. Oh no, the memorandum came to fruition January 1964 when the U.S. launched some weather satellites. It was called a weather satellite, I should say, the Echo 2. And this memorandum paved the way. Did you guys know that there were actually joint U.S.-Soviet space missions in the early 70s?
I actually did that. I actually did know that.
Yeah,
yes.
Apollo Soyuz.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And later,
Soyuz.
this Soyuz, yes, in 1972, and this later paved the way for, and that later paved the way for the International Space Station.
Yes.
Well.
Oh, and we had kind of been hinting at this, thanks to you, Travis, but there were actually 8 more Sputniks.
Yeah.
8 more.
Yep. One of the big setbacks that the Soviet Union had, and really what kind of allowed the United States to get a foothold in its space race, or in the space race, was the death of the man you were talking about earlier, Sergei Korolev.
I was just about to get to that. Yeah. He was hoping to send cosmonauts to the moon in October 1967 to mark the 50th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution, but he died of colon cancer complications in January 1966. And none of his successors, I guess, were nearly as good as he was. So the moon program for the Soviets just fell apart.
Yeah. Well, not completely. They did eventually make it to the moon, but it was the huge setback that allowed the United States to get ahead. If you believe that the United States ever got ahead and ever went to the moon to begin with.
Oh, you're angering Jimmy. He doesn't like moon landing conspiracy theories, let me tell you.
The moon landing didn't happen. We all know that.
You're triggering him hard. Anyway, but yeah, the Soviets had the N-1 rockets. They were supposed to get them to the moon, and those were failing. They abandoned their efforts on it. Apollo 11 touchdown on the moon, and on the moon's Sea of Tranquility, July 20th, 1969. Neil Armstrong and and all that. We're all very familiar with that.
So,
Real or not,
let me
I
ask
suppose.
Let me test the great Marchand's mind and knowledge. Do you remember the three men who were on the Apollo 11 mission?
Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and the third guy always eludes me. He was the pilot.
Yes. Yeah. He was the one that stayed on board. So it is, I had it in my head, and then as soon as you started talking, I lost it. Michael Collins. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Fellow Michael
Collins. Yeah. I always try to remember, I always try to remember all three of them, but I always try to remember Michael Collins' names because it is a frequent Jeopardy question, because it's the one person that a lot of people cannot remember. Even though he took all the risks to get there, just like everybody else. But because he didn't actually walk on the moon, he's not as remembered as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin.
Yeah, well, and tragically, I mean, there were several more manned missions to the moon, but almost nobody can name the astronauts on those later missions.
There were, so altogether, there were 17 Apollo missions. And Apollo 17 was the last two. I'm pretty sure. I'm going by memory, so let me double check and make sure that I'm correct in that.
While you look that up, I will also mention that even though the Soviets didn't get to the moon,
What's
the final one? Okay,
that's Apollo 17.
All right,
I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure.
That's fine. But yeah, so even though the Soviets didn't get to the moon first, they did have another first after that. They had the first space station, the Salyut 1, which was launched on, I should say, April 19th, 1971. And obviously the Mir space station in the 1980s and 1990s. And Russian cosmonaut Valery Polyakov set a record on Mir for the longest consecutive stay in space.
But was she pretty?
I think that was a guy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it was.
Damn it. Was he pretty?
Yes. I mean, I'll double check just to make sure. I'm going to double check live on the air right now. Yes, it was a man.
Valerie is a male name in Russian.
But yes, he stayed in space from January 1994 to March 1995. 14 months, 438 days. You unofficially beat that. Sure. Might want to call Guinness and tell him. Not that Guinness.
Hey, I'm something Jimmy and I can agree on.
Actually, it is the same Guinness.
It is?
Guinness Book of World Records is owned by the Guinness Beer Company. Yes.
Yeah, it's just, I knew that. Yeah, it's the same thing. Speaking of,
as a marketing way of selling their and drawing more attention to their beers, because they did not.
Well, Jimmy, I stand corrected.
Speaking of, when can we wrap this up? Because Jimmy and I are supposed to meet a couple of ladies at the bar later.
Oh, really?
Wait, this is Monster Island. There's only so many ladies on this island.
Oh, there's plenty of ladies on this island. What are you talking about?
Are
One
they
of them
small,
is my pseudo sister.
and do they sing?
Occasionally.
occasionally, but the lady that I'm supposed to be meeting later actually has wings. So
wait, what?
moving on.
It's okay. Oh, another update from Mr. Winter's stream. Okay, what's going on this time?
Well, as I live and breathe, looky here. A trail of sulfur. Follow it, 57. The Norse giant from space is about to learn it's never good to be a messy eater. Oh, Ymir. You say that around most people these days, and they think of Attack on Titan. Am I the only one sick of the final season, taking 3 years to complete? I finally agreed with Marchland on something when he said he'd rather read the manga instead of waiting for the anime to finally finish. Speaking of which, Marchland should cover its film duology on his show. I hear that guy G-Man wants to discuss them. What's the G stand for anyway? Gatekeeper? Probably. Gotta say, I must admire his confidence. Anyway, back to the sulfur trail.
Really? I didn't realize that we had piles of sulfur for him to
sounds
eat.
Weirdly dangerous.
Yes.
Well,
to be honest with you,
it's what he usually eats. I mean, that is his native food. So.
Right, but why would you have piles of sulfur just kind of laying around on the island?
I feel like at least one of the kaiju poops sulfur.
Probably.
Probably. It's a wonderful little ecosystem around here. I mean, I found out that thanks to Alyssa Goji Geek that Hedera disposes all the sewage here on the island. They just feed it to him.
Yeah. I think Gauss guano. I think Gauss guano is made of sulfur.
That would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
That would make sense. And you were here for Gamera versus Gauss, so you would know.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
You would know.
I was wondering what that, because it was like a smell of like rotten eggs and just, yeah.
Yeah. I bet sometimes they feed the Ymir rotten eggs just to confuse him because he thinks it smells like sulfur.
That's cruel.
Yeah, that is cruel. Yeah. Be nice to the Ymir, you jerks. All right. Before we move on, I know, Travis, you had a little fact about Mr. Gagarin that you wanted to share with us.
Well, yeah. Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, he had an untimely end, flying a plane of all things. His plane crashed. He basically disappeared. Like, they've never been able to find the plane or his body, but he disintegrated. He disappeared in his plane. But yeah. There is a belief that he crashed or that his plane had some kind of malfunction and that he crashed. And for the longest time, the Soviet Union did not admit how he died. It was a mystery because they did not want the United States or any other country to know that the hero of the Soviet Union had died in such an untimely and kind of tragic way.
It would not surprise me if he was not here on the island today.
Ooh.
Oh, of course you think it was aliens, Jimmy.
Ooh.
You know what? I'm kind of with Jimmy on that one. I think it probably was aliens.
Everything's aliens for Jimmy.
Well, there's the ba-dum-tsh plane crash. That ba-dum-tsh was an Australian guy who was flying from Melbourne to Hobart in Tasmania, and he disappeared. And the last radio signal that he gave was describing an object flying around him and flying at incredible speeds. So.
Very possible. And now for some more feedback, but this time from listeners. In this case, it is my friend Neil Reeby, who has been a guest host on the show, slated to come back at some point. Dude literally told me I could just bring him on for any Godzilla movie, and he'd just come on and talk about it.
Oh, I'm glad that somebody can just request a movie and then just be able to show up. Okay, fine.
You're coming back several times, good sir. Good sir.
I said
anyway,
good day, sir.
So Neil was writing in response to my episode with John LeMay on them, episode 60. So he sent me a little bit of a message thread on Facebook about it. He said, that was funny to find out that Gordon Douglas, who was the director of this movie, directed Zombies on Broadway. I loved that movie when I was a kid. I saw it on PBS when I stayed overnight at my grandparents'. I didn't know Zombies on Broadway was ever on TV, but apparently it was. What was especially cool was that PBS aired it at 10:30 Friday night and then again Saturday afternoon. I was able to watch it twice in a short span of time. This was before the VHS/beta days. Jeez, does anyone remember beta? Most of us barely remember VHS. So watching a monster movie twice in the same weekend was unheard of. Someone's going to pay me to cover that on Patreon, aren't they? Zombies on Broadway.
Zombies on Broadway.
Yes.
And Travis is immediately thinking, where is it?
Yeah, Zombies on Broadway.
I'm going to have that on Kaiju Weekly. And then he goes on to say, and of course I loved them when I was a kid. Regarding the sugar, because I brought up the whole thing about how the giant ants still like normal size sugar. The giant ants never got away with any of it because the sugar was shown spilled on the floor at the various locations. The only time they were able to run off with the sugar was when they took it from the railroad boxcars. In that instance, the sugar was probably stored in containers they could carry. My interpretation of what was going on in the earlier scenes was that the smell of the sugar attracted them, and they tore up the shop and the mobile home trying to get their jaws on it. There you go. He decided to Stan Lee no prize this. And you know what? I'll send you one of those no prizes, Neil. You earned it. Did you find Zombies on Broadway?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Bela Lugosi is in that film.
Bela Lugosi is in it?
Yeah.
You can buy the DVD for $21 used.
Well, someone's going to sponsor it, aren't they? Yes.
Don't
on Broadway.
Don't I have one in the coffers that I've still got to use?
Yeah, but you wanted to do something else that was very, very nostalgic.
Oh yeah. Dinosaurs. Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk later. Anyway. And now, gentlemen, if you can muster the energy.
We can muster as much energy as you want us to, good sir.
Are you German or Russian in that one?
I'm not going to tell you because I'm a little bit Irish, a little bit. I'm also a little bit Irish. I can be a little bit Scottish. I can be a little bit Scottish.
Oh, wait. Your Scottish accent sounds weirdly familiar.
I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
Okay. I'm having flashbacks, and they involve Yeti.
Well, I have no idea what you're talking about. Mr.
What was that? What?
Oh, nothing.
Many of my flashbacks also involve Yetis.
Because your personal Jaeger is called Nipple Dragon.
Nipple Dragon.
Wait, that has nothing to do with Yetis. That's just a nipple dragon.
Sure. Oh, you've seen it?
It's a beautiful...
Pornographic Mechanicon. That's how you would describe it.
It's beautiful, isn't it, Jimmy?
All right.
I thought so, too.
Look,
I don't need to hear anymore.
The location where the missile shoots from was Michael's idea, not mine.
And unfortunately, it only had room for one single missile.
But it's a pretty...
All right, I'm going to cut you off. I'm cutting you off right there so we can move on to the all-important Patreon shout-outs.
Travis Alexander.
It's morphin' time, Michael!
Danny Davana!
Bex from Redeemed Otaku!
Eli Harris.
Chris Cook!
It's probably that good old-fashioned boy everyone loves out there. His name is Damon Noy.
The Cellcast!
Eric Anderson. Hello, Mr. Anderson.
Hello, Mr. Ted Williams.
Toku And again, as I scrape the blood out of my ears, I remind all of you that you can get shout-outs like this and other perks by joining MIFV Max on Patreon, starting at just $3 a month. Also, go buy our merch on TeePublic. I need to mention that a little more often. All right. And now, to let everybody know what is coming up in the next few episodes of the Film Vault, we're getting back to Godzilla Redux, redo, however you want to say it, with our friend Danny Boy Damana for Mothra vs. Godzilla from 1964, considered by many to be one of the best of the sequels to the original Godzilla and one of the high points of the Showa era. And then after that, Ameri-kaiju continues and gets a little wacky because the next movie we talk about in this series is as big as a battleship.
Oh no. Wait, hang on, is there going to be a drinking game involved with this?
I already know how many times that line is used. 12.
That is blackout level, sir.
Yep. I think it's 12. It's 11 or 12. I'll double check when we watch. But yes, the giant claw. We had to. How can you talk about American kaiju movies and not talk about the giant claw?
I mean, it did just get a nifty new 4K release that I'm assuming is in your Film Vault.
Yes. Thanks to Arrow Video. Yes, it is in the Film Vault. But the giant claw is not on the island. He's on the beta site. He's considered too weird to be on the main island.
You let the Ymir on this island. You did not let the giant claw.
I don't make the decisions.
You didn't let Crazy Bernie the bird on this island.
I don't make the decisions.
You have an
Take it up with
island
the
where
board.
you put the things that you deem as too weird. Like, that's not fair. Like, that's like high school all over again.
Well,
right.
Well, again, I don't make the decisions. And
It's
in defense of the decision makers, they made far more questionable calls than that because Shin Godzilla's
That's
on
racist.
Well,
It's like the mathlete table in high school.
Yeah,
it's like where all the mathletes sit.
Okay, but I'm just saying they also put Shin Godzilla on the island because I think Shin Godzilla's too weird.
But Nathan, that doesn't make any sense.
I don't make the decisions.
Okay.
I don't make the decisions. I just work here.
Travis, we're gonna have to stop by Mr. Winter's office on the way home, on the way back.
He didn't make the decision either. This was a board decision before he was here.
Well, I need to talk to Mr. Winter anyway, sir.
Yes. And anyway, joining me for the movie As Big as a Battleship will be Damon Noyes.
I was gonna say Big Mama.
Big Mama Damon.
Big Mama Damon. Well, it'd be good. It'll be mighty fine to see old Big Mama Damon back on the podcast.
Big Mama Damon.
Big Mama Damon.
All right. All right.
Smokes 12 packs a day. Big Mama Damon.
All right. And now we come to quite possibly the most important segment of the podcast, shameless self-promotion. So I'm going to beat both of you to this and say, all y'all need to listen to Henshin Men and to The Power Trip, the spin-off podcast. You really should. And now I'll let you gentlemen talk about that a little bit more if you so choose.
Travis, go ahead.
My co-hosts in common.
Yeah.
Travis, go ahead and start us off, please. Thank you.
Me and Nathan host the Henshin Men podcast. I forgot what podcast we host together. I almost said Kaiju Weekly. I am tired. We host the Henshin Men podcast, where we go into Japanese superheroes, transforming superheroes, and their high-flying and high-kicking adventures, episode by episode. We've been on what's turning out to be an almost 2-year journey of
it hasn't even been a year
the
yet.
Original Kamen Rider. It's close. It's close to a year now.
It's feeling
but
like
yes,
it, yeah.
We've been exploring the original Kamen Rider series from the 70s, and we do plan on getting to other tokusatsu and Japanese superhero shows, transforming superhero shows, once we finish with Kamen Rider. And Michael and I both host the Kaiju Weekly podcast, which is a podcast all about exploring the wide world of giant monster movies in a fun setting where we take the movies seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. Obviously, if you have heard any of the things that got edited out of this episode, we do not take ourselves out that seriously.
Oh, everyone here on the island heard it all.
We covered Star Crash, and you're over here saying that we take the movies seriously. Come on, man.
That movie is a masterpiece.
Moving on.
Yes, we talk a little bit too much about Yeti nipples, and I am extremely enthusiastic about Night of the Lepus. So,
And
oh,
Bear
yes, our first episode together.
yeah. And we also created and are involved in the production of Kaiju Ramen Magazine as part of Kaiju Ramen Media LLC. Kaiju Ramen Magazine is a quarterly magazine that celebrates all the giant monster media and the fans who love it and express their love in creative ways. And so it's just a nice magazine where you can go and find all kinds of great kaiju and giant monster goodness.
And my name is Michael. I am the host, along with my good friend, Mr. Marchand, here of The Power Trip, a journey through the Power Rangers franchise, where we go season by season through Power Rangers, and we analyze those more in depth than probably what you would be used to from other Power Rangers podcasts.
3.5 hours.
3.5 hours
Make
on Time Force.
for Time Force.
Yeah. So we talk about the Ranger teams, the theme song, the Zords, and we also talk about the thematics in each season. And we try to take more of an academic approach to Power Rangers, to the Power Rangers franchise, because as Nathan and I have explained on that podcast, there is kind of this upswell of there's this trend of, viewing certain pop culture shows as modern day mythology. And that's how we approach Power Rangers. And you can find out more about that podcast and all the other wonderful podcasts that we do, and all the other wonderful things that we do at kaijuramamedia.com/podcasts.
Yes. So is Kaiju Ramen as big as a battleship?
Bigger.
Only when it eats too much.
Bigger.
It is bigger.
Kaiju
Bigger, you
Ramen
say.
is huge and taking over the world slowly.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course!
Good one, Jimmy. Good one. Did you know M. Bison recorded that live here in the studio for us?
I don't believe that.
Of course. Yes, but for him, it was only Tuesday.
Yes, it was only Tuesday. What was that, Jimmy? Are you kidding me? Guys, we have to see this. Apparently, Mr. Winter found the Ymir on his stream.
Oh.
Oh, there you are, nutcracken. Oh, stop your whining. Don't hit my cyberpod. Be a good boy and let Dr. Winter give you a shot. I promise it will only hurt you. Missed me. And stabby, stabby. Oh, you brought this on yourself, big fella. Enjoy your nap. Oh. And there you have it. What does Marchland call his audience? Kaiju lovers. The most elusive creature on Monster Island, bagged and tagged. I don't know why Nichols says monster hunting is so damn hard. I'll just have 57 take the Ymir to the Solstice lab for some examinations, and then have him on display in a titanium cage. Can't be too careful in Sarazawa Memorial Park. Bring the kids and have them feed a monster. It'll be great. Ta-ta, much love.
Well, that just doesn't seem nice.
No, it doesn't. Apparently,
It seems rather exploitative to me.
Yeah, apparently nobody learned anything. Come on. As we've already established, all you have to do is be nice to the Ymir, and he doesn't hurt anybody. What?
Right.
He didn't even hurt a lamb in this movie.
Not at all. But I kind of wish he would have I kind of wish he would have hurt Mr. Winter, because Mr. Winter looks like a smarmy little SOB.
I'm not going to argue with it too much there, but that's probably why he used one of those oversized robot flies, what I wouldn't do for an oversized fly swatter right now.
What I wouldn't do for an oversized margarita right now.
I think we could all use one of those.
Mr. Winter needs to have a big fall.
I'm
just too tired to even with the jokes. I'm just like,
You know what? In light of that joke and recent events, I think I'll join you for those drinks. Sure, Jimmy, you can come along too.
All right, the more the merrier. Hey, Nathan, can your sister come?
My pseudo sister?
Your pseudo sister, yes.
Why?
Because she's pretty too.
Of course she is. Look who her brother is.
No.
Pseudo
She doesn't look pseudo brother.
Yes,
she doesn't look anything like you.
Even I didn't get it right. Got anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Hey, Jet, you want to come too?
You can drink? How does that work?
He just, he just gets a little bit punch drunk.
Okay. With that, Jimmy, cue the credits. Thank you for listening to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast produced and hosted by Nate Marchand. If you want to join the discussion and be heard on the show, we'd love to hear from you. So email us at feedback@monsterislandfilmvault.com. Our website is monsterislandfilmvault.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Monster Island Film Vault, and on Twitter, where our handle is @TheMonsterIsla1. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok. Follow Jimmy from NASA on Twitter at NASAJimmy, and our many other colorful characters using the links in the show notes. The podcast logo was created by Tyler Souls from TylerDrawsComics.com. Our theme song is Wanderer on the Offensive, live edit by B33J, Sarax, Juan Madrono, and Nonsensical Lexus, which is a remix of Counterattack Battle with the Colossus and The Opened Way Battle with the Colossus by Kootani from the video game Shadow of the Colossus. All film and audio clips belong to their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended or implied. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and or Podchaser to spread the word about the show. You can also support us by joining MIFV Max on Patreon. The Monster Island Film Vault is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production. Sayonara!